Chapter 7. Then Elisha said, Hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord, Tomorrow about this time shall a measure of fine flour be sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, in the gate of Samaria. Then a lord on whose hand the king leaned answered the man of God, and said, Behold, if the Lord would make windows in heaven, might this thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And there were 4 leprous men at the entering of the gate. And they said one to another, Why sit we here until we die? If we say we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit here, we die also. Now therefore come and let us fall unto the host of the Syrians. And if they save us alive, we shall live, and if they kill us, we shall but die. And they rose up in the twilight to go unto the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. For the Lord had made the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots, and a noise of horses, even the noise of a great host. And they said one to another, Lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the kings of the Hittites, and the kings of the Egyptians, to come upon us. Wherefore they arose and fled in the twilight, and left their tents and their horses and their asses, even the camp as it was, and fled for their life. And when these lepers came to the uttermost part of the camp, they went into one tent, and did eat and drink, and carried thence silver and gold and raiment, and went and hid it, and came again and entered into another tent, and carried thence also, and went and hid it. Then they said one to another, We do not well. This day is a day of good tidings, and we hold our peace. If we tarry till the morning light, some mischief will come upon us. Now therefore come, that we may go and tell the king's household. So they came and called unto the porter of the city, and they told them, saying, We came to the camp of the Syrians, and behold, there was no man there, neither voice of man, but horses tied and asses tied, and the tents as they were. And he called the porters, and they told it to the king's house within. And the king arose in the night, and said unto his servants, I will now shew thee what the Syrians have done to us. They know that we be hungry, therefore they are gone out of the camp to hide themselves in the field, saying, When they come out of the city, we shall catch them alive, and get into the city. And one of his servants answered and said, Let some take, I pray thee, 5 of the horses that remain, which are left in the city. Behold, they are as all the multitude of Israel that are left in it. Behold, I say that they are even as all the multitude of all the Israelites that are consumed. And let us send and see. And they took therefore 2 chariot horses, and the king sent after the host of the Syrians, saying, Go and see. And they went after them unto Jordan. And lo, all the way was full of garments and vessels, which the Syrians had cast away in their haste. And the messengers returned and told the king. And the people went out and spoiled the tents of the Syrians. So a measure of fine flour was sold for a shekel, and 2 measures of barley for a shekel, according to the word of the Lord. And the king appointed the Lord on whose hand he leaned to have the charge of the gate. And the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died, as the man of God had said, who spake when the king came down to him. And it came to pass, as the man of God had spoken to the king, saying, 2 measures of barley for a shekel, and a measure of fine flour for a shekel shall be tomorrow about this time in the gate of Samaria. And the Lord answered the man of God, and said, Now behold, if the Lord should make windows in heaven, might such a thing be? And he said, Behold, thou shalt see it with thine eyes, but shalt not eat thereof. And so it fell out unto him, that the people trode upon him in the gate, and he died. Here we see some pretty amazing things happen. Got to remember that first there was a famine, then the famine got very sore, and then the Syrians showed up to try and take advantage of the famine, and they laid siege to Samaria. Samaria was both a geographical area and the capital city of the geographical area, and it was located probably no more than 50 miles north of Jerusalem. So we're not talking huge geographical areas here. But Samaria was the capital of the northern 10 tribes. And the king of Syria was very, very, very upset with Elisha. And he said Elisha was responsible for this horrible thing, and he was going to send somebody to chop off Elisha's head. And of course he was responsible because he had led the people in unrighteousness and idolatry worship and all the rest of it, and he was responsible for the fact the weather had not been modified so that they would have the food. It was him, it wasn't Elisha. Anyway, the Syrians show up with a huge army, and they know there's a famine there, so they have to bring all their own food, and they set up camp, and they're going to starve the Samaritans out. Starve them into submission. It wasn't hard. And at one point it talks about these two women who boiled one woman's son and were going to boil the other woman's son the next day. The woman complains to the king because the second woman is hiding her son and they can't boil him up, and she's hungry. And the king says, "What can I do? What can I do? I can't get you anything from the threshing floor or from the wine press." And basically saying, "I can't get you either food or drink. There isn't any." And that's when he sends the guys to get. We're going to send the messenger to get Elisha. Elisha's sitting with the elders, and he says to them, "Tomorrow, at this time, at about this time." You got to understand, these people, they've been eating all kinds of stuff. The head of an ass, which is the least digestible part of it, has been sold for 80 pieces of silver. And a cup or two of bird poop sold for 5 pieces of silver. And so these people they're eating whatever, anything, and they're paying for it huge prices. And what he says, what Elisha says is that within 24 hours, within one day, there is going to be a measure. Now, a measure is about 8 to 10 pounds of, okay? So one measure is 8 to 10 pounds. 2 measures would be in the neighborhood of 15 to 20 pounds. Just depends on what you're trying to measure. But 8 to 10 pounds of fine flour, which would be wheat flour, would sell for a shekel, which would be, it's such an incredibly dirt cheap price that they wouldn't get it like that anyway, even if there wasn't a famine in the land. That was just dirt cheap price. And 2 measures of barley also for a shekel. Now these things, the proper word here, I don't think a shekel. I think the proper word here is small silver coin. A shekel was a ½ ounce of silver, and I don't think that was the right amount. It was a large amount of food for a very, very tiny amount of money. And so the word shekel here, I think, actually should be a small silver coin, a piece of silver. And because in one part it says pieces of silver for the horse's head and for the dove's dung, and then it says shekels for the grain, and it would have that wasn't a good comparison. I think the translators got that wrong. Don't know for sure, but it would have been more appropriate for the pieces of silver. Anyway, so as it happens, according to the story, there are 4 lepers who are outside, who are worried about starving to death. They go to the Syrian camp because they can figure out nothing to lose. The worst that can happen is the guys could kill them. They're going to starve to death anyway. They find the camp deserted. They go back and tell the king's people. The king's people send out somebody and find that, yes, it is totally empty. And the next day, a measure of fine flour is selling for a silver coin, and 2 measures of fine barley for the same amount. The Lord was right again. And of course, the Syrians brought all the food to end the famine for the children of Israel. Interesting how Heavenly Father looks after the people sometimes, even if the leaders aren't righteous. Can't always do it, but sometimes He does.